Reunited after years, the incredible journey of a lost dog found through technology. Part 1. A bond that was never meant to be broken. A dog's love is unconditional, unwavering, and timeless. For many pet owners, the thought of losing their beloved companion is their worst nightmare. Yet, every year, thousands of dogs go missing, leaving behind broken-hearted families who never stop hoping for a miracle. In the past, when a dog was lost, hope faded quickly. But today, with advances in technology, microchips, and social media, many lost dogs find their way home, even after years of separation. This is the story of Buddy, a Labrador Retriever who was lost for 6 long years. It is a story of loss, hope, and the incredible power of technology to reunite hearts that were never meant to be apart. The perfect life before everything changed. Buddy had been with James Parker since he was just a puppy. James, a retired firefighter, had adopted Buddy from a local shelter when the Labrador was only a few months old. Buddy was more than just a pet. He was family. Their days were filled with adventure. Morning jogs through the park, weekend fishing trips by the lake, quiet evenings by the fireplace, where Buddy would rest his head on James's feet. The two were inseparable. "He's my best friend," James would often say. "I don't know what I'd do without him." But then, one ordinary day, everything changed. The day Buddy disappeared. It was a summer afternoon, the sun shining bright in the sky. James had taken Buddy for a walk near the outskirts of town, where the fields stretched endlessly. As they reached a quiet road, a sudden loud noise, the screech of tires, a car horn blaring, startled Buddy. Before James could react, Buddy bolted. The terrified dog ran across the field, disappearing beyond the trees before James could catch up. He called his name. He searched for hours, then days, then weeks. Buddy was gone, and no matter how hard James tried, he couldn't find him. A search that never stopped. James did everything possible to bring Buddy home. Flyers with Buddy's picture were posted all over town. He visited animal shelters daily, hoping someone had found him. He called local vets, rescue groups, and pet stores, asking if anyone had seen a lost Labrador. Months passed, then years. The world moved on, but James never did. Every time he saw a Labrador, his heart would race, hoping, just for a second, that it might be Buddy. He never stopped believing that one day, somehow, his best friend would come home. But as 6 long years passed, hope began to fade, until one phone call changed everything. A call that no one expected. It was an ordinary Wednesday afternoon when James's phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to a veterinarian from a city 300 miles away. "We believe we have your dog," the vet said. James froze. "What?" he whispered, his hands shaking. "A stray Labrador was found on the streets and brought to us. He was dirty, thin, and scared. We scanned him for a microchip, and your name came up." James felt like the world had stopped spinning. "Are you sure?" he asked, barely breathing. "We are," the vet confirmed. "His name is Buddy, isn't it?" James couldn't speak. Tears welled in his eyes. After 6 years, 6 long years, Buddy was alive. A mystery yet to be solved. How had Buddy survived? Where had he been all these years? James didn't know. All he knew was he needed to see Buddy again. And as he got into his car, heart pounding, hands gripping the wheel, he knew that soon, very soon, his best friend would be back in his arms. Because some bonds, no matter the distance, are never truly broken. What's next? This was just the beginning of Buddy's incredible story. In Part 2, we will uncover how Buddy was found, the heartbreaking condition he was in, and the emotional reunion that left everyone in tears. Because sometimes, love doesn't just wait, it finds a way home. Part 2. The emotional reunion that no one expected. James Parker had dreamed of this moment for 6 years. Now, as he drove 300 miles toward the veterinary clinic where Buddy had been found, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had imagined 1,000 different scenarios. Would Buddy recognize him? Would Buddy still be the same dog he had loved for so many years? Or had time changed them both forever? There was only one way to find out, and with every passing mile, James was getting closer to the answer. The moment he walked through the door. When James arrived at the veterinary clinic, his legs felt weak. He pushed open the door, and the receptionist immediately recognized him. "You must be James," she said, smiling. "He's been waiting for you." James swallowed hard. "Where is he?" The vet, a kind-looking woman in her 40s, stepped forward. "We found him wandering the streets, underweight and covered in dirt," she explained. "We don't know how long he was out there, but when we scanned his microchip, we knew he had a home." James barely heard her words. All he could focus on was the door at the end of the hallway. "Can I see him?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The vet nodded. "Follow me." The first look after 6 years. James stepped into a small examination room, and there he was. Buddy. He was thinner, his once vibrant golden coat now dull and dirty. There were a few scars on his body, and his eyes, those deep brown eyes, were filled with confusion, uncertainty. For a second, neither of them moved. James could barely breathe. "Buddy," he whispered. Buddy's ears perked. His eyes flickered with something familiar, something buried deep in his memory. Then, it happened. Recognition in the flood of emotion. Buddy's nose twitched, and then, his body stiffened. His tail, which had been still, began to wag. First slow, then faster, and then, with a sudden burst of energy, Buddy lunged forward, leaping into James's arms. He whined. He barked. He licked James's face as if trying to make up for 6 years of lost time. Tears streamed down James's face as he wrapped his arms around Buddy, holding him tighter than ever before. "You found me," James whispered. "You're home. Boy, you're finally home." Buddy let out a whimper, pressing his head against James's chest, refusing to let go. No matter what had happened in those lost years, no matter where Buddy had been, none of it mattered now, because he was back where he belonged. The weight of the years apart. The vet wiped away tears of her own before speaking. "He never stopped looking for you," she said. "He's underweight, but otherwise healthy. It's a miracle he survived out there on his own." James nodded, stroking Buddy's fur, feeling the warmth of his best friend against him once again. "He was never on his own," James said softly. "He always had me, even when he didn't know it." The entire room fell silent, watching the reunion unfold. It was the kind of love that could not be measured by time. A love that, even after 6 years, had never faded. The drive back home. As they left the clinic, Buddy refused to let James out of his sight. He pressed against his leg, his tail never stopping. When James opened the car door, Buddy jumped inside as if he had never been gone. As James drove back home, Buddy curled up in the passenger seat, resting his head on James's lap, just like he used to. Every few minutes, James would reach down and stroke his fur, just to make sure he was real. And Buddy? He closed his eyes, finally at peace, because for the first time in 6 years, he was safe. He was home. What's next? Buddy's journey back home was nothing short of a miracle. But where had he been all these years? In Part 3, we will uncover the mystery of Buddy's disappearance, what happened after he ran away, the hardships he endured, and the unbelievable story of survival that no one saw coming. Because Buddy's journey was far from over. Part 3, The Lost Years, a story of survival. Buddy was finally home. After 6 long years, he was back where he belonged, resting at James Parker's feet, his tail wagging softly as if he had never left. But where had he been all this time? How had he survived for so long? Alone and far from home? James may never know everything. But as the days passed and Buddy settled back into his old life, small clues began to paint a picture of his incredible journey. A journey of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable will to keep going, even when all seemed lost. The first few days after he disappeared, when Buddy ran from James that fateful day, his instincts took over. The loud noise of the screeching tires and the car horn had triggered his flight response, and his only thought had been to run. He had never been far from home before, and soon, he was lost. Buddy likely spent the first few days wandering, trying to find his way back. He may have followed since, retraced old walking routes, but nothing led him home. As time passed, hunger and exhaustion set in. He had never had to hunt for food before. Now, he had no choice. Surviving in the wild. Dogs are resilient creatures, and despite being a domestic pet, Buddy's survival instincts kicked in. He scavenged for food, eating scraps, digging through trash, and drinking from puddles. But food wasn't his only problem. Shelter, with no home to return to. He likely slept under bridges, in abandoned buildings, or curled up beneath trees to stay warm. Whether in winter, he would have struggled against the cold, and in summer, he would have searched for shade to avoid the scorching heat. Other animals, stray dogs, often form small packs for protection. Did Buddy find temporary companionship along the way? And the most heartbreaking thought, did he still wait for James? Did he ever stop searching? Did someone take him in? One of the biggest mysteries was how Buddy had ended up 300 miles away. Dogs don't usually travel that far on their own. So had someone taken him? James wondered if a kind stranger had found him and cared for him for a while, perhaps thinking he was just another lost dog, unaware that his real owner was searching for him. But if Buddy had a home during those years, why was he found on the streets again? Had he been abandoned a second time? Had something happened to the person who took him in? No one would ever know for sure. But one thing was clear. Buddy never stopped holding on to hope. The condition he was found in. When the veterinarian had first called James, she had described Buddy as thin, dirty, and exhausted. Though he had survived, it had not been easy. His coat was dull and patchy, likely from malnutrition and exposure to the elements. His ribs were slightly visible, a sign that food had been scarce. There were scars on his legs, possibly from fights with other stray dogs or from navigating dangerous terrain. But despite everything, he was alive. His heart was still strong, and his spirit had never been broken. The reunion begins to heal old wounds. As Buddy adjusted back to life with James, something incredible happened. The fear in his eyes began to fade. The nervous twitch in his ears when he heard loud noises started to ease. He gained back weight. His coat grew shinier, and his energy returned. The dog that had once wandered the streets, lost and alone, was now curled up in his favorite spot by the fireplace, just like he used to be. And James? He couldn't stop watching him, still struggling to believe that Buddy was really home. Sometimes, I wake up and think it's just a dream, he admitted. But then I see him there, sleeping at my feet, and I know, it's real. He came back to me. It was a miracle. But their journey was not over yet. The power of the microchip. Buddy's story would not have been possible without one small thing that changed everything, a microchip. Without it, he would have remained just another stray. No one would have known where he belonged. His years of survival would have ended without ever seeing James again. But thanks to that tiny chip, his name, his home, and his story had not been forgotten. His journey had led him back to where he was always meant to be. And now, he was finally home. What's next? Buddy's return was nothing short of a miracle. But what came next was even more heartwarming. In Part 4, we will explore how Buddy's story inspired an entire community, spreading awareness about lost pets, microchipping, and the incredible power of never giving up on the ones we love. Because Buddy's story wasn't just about him. It was about every lost dog out there, waiting to find their way home. Part 4. A story that touched the world. Buddy's return wasn't just a personal miracle for James Parker. It became a story that touched an entire community, and soon, the world. People who had never met Buddy or James felt a deep connection to their journey. A reminder that love, loyalty, and the power of hope could overcome even the longest separation. But most importantly, Buddy's story sparked something even greater, awareness. Because for every Buddy that found his way home, there were thousands of lost dogs still out there, waiting for their own miracles. And James was determined to make sure they weren't forgotten. The news that went viral. The day after Buddy's reunion, a local journalist reached out to James after hearing about his incredible story. At first, James was hesitant. He wasn't looking for attention. He was just grateful to have his best friend back. But then, he thought about all the dogs who never got the same chance Buddy had. So he agreed. The article was published in the town's newspaper, titled, "Lost for 6 Years, Labrador Finds His Way Home Thanks to Microchip." And within hours, it spread like wildfire. People shared it on social media. National news stations picked it up. Animal shelters, rescue groups, and veterinarians began using Buddy's story as an example of why microchipping was so important. And James started getting messages, hundreds of them. "Your story gives me hope. My dog has been missing for 2 years. I'll never stop looking. Thank you for reminding me to update my dog's microchip information. I never realized how important it was. This made me cry." The love between a dog and his owner is truly unbreakable. James hadn't expected any of this. But now, he had a mission: the search for more lost dogs. Inspired by Buddy's story, James decided to take action. He volunteered at a local animal shelter, helping reunite lost pets with their families. He worked with rescue organizations to spread awareness about microchipping, sharing Buddy's story whenever he could. And most importantly, he helped other owners keep searching for their missing pets, offering support, advice, and most of all, hope. Because he knew better than anyone that sometimes miracles take time. But that didn't mean they wouldn't happen. A community comes together. James wasn't the only one who had been touched by Buddy's return. His entire town embraced the story as if Buddy belonged to all of them. Local businesses donated food and supplies to the animal shelter in Buddy's name. The town held a special event celebrating rescue dogs, raising funds to provide free microchips for low-income pet owners. And perhaps the most touching moment, a local artist painted a mural of Buddy on the side of the animal shelter. It showed him standing tall, looking toward the horizon, a symbol of resilience and hope. Beneath it, in bold letters, were the words, "Every lost pet deserves to find their way home." Buddy's new life. After the media attention faded, life went back to normal for James and Buddy. But in many ways, nothing was normal anymore. Because James never took a single moment for granted. He still took Buddy on morning walks, only this time he held onto the leash a little tighter. He still let Buddy curl up by the fireplace at night, stroking his fur as he drifted off to sleep. And every morning when he woke up, he looked down at his best friend, safe, happy, and home. And he whispered the same words. Every single day, "I'll never let you go again." Buddy would wag his tail, as if to say, "I never wanted to leave." What's next? Buddy's journey had inspired thousands. But the final chapter of his story wasn't just about him. It was about what came next. In Part 5, we will explore the lasting impact of Buddy's rescue, how one lost dog's return changed the future for countless other animals in need. Because Buddy's story was proof of one simple truth. No matter how much time has passed, love always finds its way home. Part 5. A legacy of hope and second chances. Buddy's journey home was more than just a reunion. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even after years of separation, love never truly fades. But his story didn't end when he stepped back into James Parker's life. It continued in ways neither of them could have imagined. Because Buddy's return didn't just change his life. It changed the lives of countless other lost pets still waiting for their own miracle. Buddy's story sparks a movement. After Buddy's rescue made headlines, animal shelters across the country saw an increase in pet reunions. More people began microchipping their pets. More lost pets were scanned and returned home instead of ending up in shelters. More families held on to hope, refusing to give up on their missing pets. And James? He wasn't just a pet owner anymore. He had become an advocate. He started working with local animal shelters, helping to spread awareness about the importance of microchipping and pet identification. Every time he spoke, he would say the same thing. "If I had given up, I would have never seen Buddy again. Never stop looking. Never lose hope." And people listened, helping more lost pets find their way home. Inspired by Buddy's incredible journey, James launched an online community for pet owners with missing dogs. The group, called Bring Them Home, quickly grew to thousands of members, people from all over the country sharing their own stories, searching for their lost pets, and helping others do the same. Volunteers monitored shelters for newly found dogs. People shared lost dog posters across social media, Microchip clinics offered free scanning events to check if stray animals had owners. And then, the unthinkable happened. Because of James's efforts, another lost dog was reunited with its owner after 5 years. And then another, and another. Buddy's story was creating real change. And James knew this was only the beginning. A reunion that came full circle. One evening, months after Buddy had come home, James received a message from a woman named Sarah Donovan. Her dog, a golden retriever named Charlie, had been missing for 3 years. Sarah had tried everything: posters, shelters, social media, but nothing had led her back to Charlie. She had seen Buddy's story and decided to check Charlie's microchip information one last time. And that's when she realized she had forgotten to update her contact information. Tears filled her eyes as she fixed the error and contacted the shelter where Charlie had last been seen. 2 days later, Sarah was reunited with her lost dog. She thanked James, saying, "If it weren't for you and Buddy, I never would have thought to check again. You didn't just bring Buddy home. You brought mine home, too." James smiled, looking down at Buddy, who was curled up at his feet. "You hear that, boy? You didn't just save yourself. You saved others, too." Buddy wagged his tail, because somehow, he already knew. A final message of hope. Buddy's journey proved that love never gives up. It may take years. It may take hundreds of miles. But as long as there is hope, there is always a chance to find your way back home. James had waited 6 years for his best friend, and in the end, every second had been worth it. So to anyone still searching for their lost pet, James had only one thing to say: don't stop looking, because somewhere out there, they're still waiting for you. And sometimes, against all odds, love finds its way back, because some bonds can never be broken, and some hearts, no matter how much time passes, always belong together. The end, but never truly goodbye. Buddy's story may be over, but his legacy will live on forever. Because every time another lost dog makes it home, a little piece of Buddy's miracle happens again. Buddy's story is proof that love never truly fades. Even after years apart, a dog's heart never forgets. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming and inspiring pet stories. Have you ever been reunited with a lost pet? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.